Hey, Peter, can you hear me? Hey, Yin, good morning.
Hey, how are you?
Hey, doing good. Hey, David, Steve.
Hello. Hello. I decided to wear a green screen today.
Oh,
I don't want to turn it on because I'm afraid how it'll look like if I turn on the green screen now, like in Zoom.
okay, so you change the blur background?
Yeah, I have the blur. I don't know what happens if I do green screen. Uh, oh, it doesn't. It's a wrong green, so it doesn't do anything. That's good.
Can you guys see my sharing now?
Yep.
Yep.
Okay, okay, great. So let's wait for a bit longer, give people time to join. Hey, Pashwa? Oh, Yin, you are wearing your hat.
Yeah. Actually, is it okay for me to be solo branded at the community meeting?
Yeah, it's okay.
All right.
Oh, Jeremy, you are here. And we also have Parish. So yeah, welcome. Let's give one more minute, then we can get started. Hey, Justin.
Hello.
Hey, Jeremy, I saw your face now. Great.
Hello.
Okay, so I think we can get started now. So yeah, so first of my name is Iris. I'm working from Intel, so I'm very excited here today. So today, Rudy, who is coming from solo.io, we are going to share with us something around the ambient policy enforcement. So this is actually a very hot topic, and a lot of discussion is around this topic. So and really a very in-time topic to deliver today. Then the second one is coming from Jeremy Morris. So Jeremy is working from Microsoft. He will walking through us the latest Istio cattle update that you can leverage in your when you're working with your ambient mode. So before we move to the speaker, I also want to share with you something about the Istio community update. So in this month. So the first thing is, this month actually is a very special milestone for the Istio project. The Istio project is celebrating its 7th birthday now. So, over the past 7 years, the project has grown tremendously, and we have achieved a lot together. So thank you for all the contributors. Either you are, a new maintainer, or you are a very early member. So your dedication, your passion, your hard work, your contribution, it is the heart for the whole project. Thank you. Then the second thing is we have released Istio 1.22 in this month. So in this release, the Istio ambient mode has been raised to beta. So for those, if you are interested in the ambient, especially if you want to leverage it in your environment, make sure you check out this blog post by Lin Song. So the blog post has a lot of details and a lot of best practice recommended for you for the ambient mode. Then the third thing is the Istio API has been raised to V1. So this reflecting the Istio features stability. So make sure check out the blog post from Whitney to get more details. So last not the least, we have the Gateway API mesh support promoted to stable. So there is a lot of joint effort with other communities. So check out the blog post from John Howard for more details. Then the last thing I want to share is the IstioCon. Yeah, we will have the IstioCon in the upcoming KubeCon North America. So it's a co-located event. So the call for proposal is undergoing now. So make sure you submit the proposal topics for the IstioCon, and we are looking forward to see your proposals and meeting you in person in this November. So yeah, with that, I think let's move to our first topic. Yin, would you please take over?
Sure. Just a sec. Let me share. All right. So I have a very slide light, exactly 0 slides, and very demo heavy talk. We're going to be talking about the different policy enforcement points that Istio Ambient Mesh provides, and how you can attach policy to each of the different points. So to get started, this is the basic setup. We basically have a 3-node kind cluster. I went ahead and loaded every image that the demo needs into the cluster, just so that we don't get rate limited here. We've installed Gateway API. We've installed ambient Istio. All of this is covered in the Getting Started guide, and I can see about publishing all the scripts and stuff that I use here as well. I've gone ahead and created a client namespace, a non-mesh client. We have turned on ambient for the client namespace and the default namespace. Gone ahead and installed sleep as our client, book info as our server. Yep, we've got a gateway, an ingress gateway, and just to not deal with it, this is cluster IP, so it's not actually externally exposed, but it behaves in much the same way. And then just ran through some client tests. So we can do that, see what happens. Basically, these are our tests. So we're going to test from ambient sleep to ingress, from ambient sleep directly to the product page service, from ambient not sleep to our product page service, from ambient or non-ambient sleep to ingress, from non-ambient sleep to product page, and then from non-ambient not sleep to product page. And just see how the different types of clients are going to interact with the different ways that we can access book info. And so you can see right out of the box, we're pretty permissive and everything is allowed to access book info. So our first sort of simplest option, we can add a peer authentication. We could put Istio into strict mode. So let's go ahead and do that. All right, and we can take a look at what this looks like. It's pretty simple. Basically, I've just gone ahead and put this into the default namespace, and we're just telling Istio we want to be strict about MTLS. So if we run through our tests again here, we can see ingress is still working, and our ambient clients are still working just fine, but we are now dropping the connections from non-ambient pods. So this is pretty handy if you just want to prevent anything that's not in your mesh from accessing your services directly. And as you can also see here, they can still go through ingress. That's fine. There, we have not restricted that. So yeah, I guess I didn't mention it, but this isn't like super heavily organized. If you have questions, I think everyone is allowed to unmute. Is that correct? Just unmute yourself and ask a question.
Yeah. Just unmute yourself, and you do not need to raise a hand. Just ask your question directly, or you can leave your question in the chat.
Yeah, I don't actually see chat, so I guess if someone posts in chat, Iris or Jeremy, can you just interrupt me?
Yeah, sure.
All right, cool. Thank you.
So Yin, from this demo, it looks like if we turn on the strict one, for the non-ambient mode, they also can reach the ingress, but cannot reach the product page prod directly, right?
Yep, that is correct.
Okay.
So this may be handy for you if you have some clients in your cluster that are not going to join the mesh. There is still a way for them to reach things, and you can do the normal stuff on your ingress to restrict that or whatever. Require that they have some sort of token or what have you. Yeah, and so this the peer auth is being enforced by the Z tunnel, and yeah, there's not too much special. This is just sort of ambient, being very ambient and doing its thing. You haven't had to do too much config to get here. We'll go ahead and remove it for now and look at some other things. And just to be clear, we're back to normal state. So the next thing that we can start to look at is applying some sort of different policies. Let's see. So let's take a look at this authorization policy. It's fairly straightforward. Basically, we're using a selector in the policy, and this is a hint. This is something that you're going to want to pay attention to. If you use a selector, it will be enforced by ztunnel. So we'll get to some of the implications of that a little bit later on, but that's important to remember. And basically, we're just going to allow connections from our client namespace and from the sleep service account. Seems pretty reasonable. So let's see what happens. Nope, don't do that. We don't really care again. All right, so here's what we got. We have now accidentally blocked connections from ingress, but our sleep is getting through from the ambient client. Not sleep is denied, as we would expect. And then our non-ambient clients are not getting through. So yeah, this highlights one sort of important point in that if you want to allow traffic from ingress, you actually need to allow traffic from ingress. It doesn't get any sort of like special bypass or anything like that. So let's go ahead and fix that. All righty, here we go. Exact same policy. We're going to enforce at ztunnel again, but we've added our ingress gateway. All right, and now we're getting somewhere. We are allowing from ingress again. We're allowing sleep. We're denying not sleep. We're denying everything that doesn't have an identity because it's outside the mesh, unless it is transiting ingress. So that looks pretty good, but let's try and get a little bit more complicated. Let's say that we want to add a restriction on the HTTP verb that is allowed to be used. So we're gonna go ahead and try this out. All right, so the only change here is we're adding an operation. We're saying you can only use get, and we're still going to try to apply this at ztunnel. Okay, so now we've got something real bad. We've accidentally blocked everything. This is an interesting behavior to be aware of. ztunnel can do a lot of things, but it is not active at layer 7. So when we added the HTTP verb, we created a policy that ztunnel isn't able to meaningfully enforce. And because we can't meaningfully enforce it, we fail closed. The result is a deny policy that will deny everything.
Yeah,
oh,
a question. Yeah, so does it mean if the user write, in this case, you know, it's because the tunnel cannot recognize layer 7, right? But if in the case the user write maybe something not valid, something, you know, bad performance or something like this, will it also cause the tunnel to fail close the traffic?
That is an interesting question. I haven't tested that. I would suspect that it would. If we can't, well, it probably will. mostly because what you've specified won't actually match.
Mhm.
But it won't just default to a blanket deny policy. So if something continues to match, like if sleep is still in there as a valid source, but you've added an invalid source next to it, like you've typoed your ingress gateway, that's not going to become a deny policy. Just your ingress isn't going to work because you haven't represented the identity correctly. Does that make sense?
Yeah, thank you.
All right. Cool. So this was not what we wanted. We're just gonna fall back to our previous state. Check that everything's working. All right. So this is working like we wanted. And this gets us to our next option for policy enforcement, which is the waypoint proxy. The waypoint proxy is Istio Ambient's way to introduce all of the rich L7 functionality that you're used to in Istio into the ambient mesh. So it's a very powerful tool and something that is well worth understanding in terms of its policy implications. So we'll take a look at this right quick. Here we are. We're going to just apply a waypoint with Istio Cuddle. I don't think we need to get too much into this because Jeremy might be covering it. I don't want to poach his talk. And we're going to tell our product page service that it is using the waypoint that we're going to deploy. So fairly straightforward there. Let's go ahead and run this. All right, and let's go ahead and see what we get. All right, so this is perhaps some weird or unanticipated behavior. Ingress is working. In 1.22, ingress does not typically send to waypoint. So your policy enforcement in ingress works, but then it goes direct to workloads rather than targeting the service waypoint. So it continues to work, but sleep is now being denied. That's interesting. We have that policy that allows it. And the reason this is occurring is because waypoints do not impersonate client identity. The node Z tunnels have the ability to get a client cert for the client that they are proxying on behalf of. And this functions because they are co-located to that. But the waypoint is not going to be co-located to your client as a hard guarantee. And so it does not have the ability to impersonate service. It's actually going to send traffic to its destination with its own identity. This can be handy though, because we can use that to mandate that traffic goes through the waypoint. So let's take a look at that now. All right. So this is, again, a policy that is being enforced by ztunnel. And we've just gone ahead and added in our product page waypoint as a principal that is allowed to reach our service. All right, so this gets us back to the behavior that we might expect, or maybe didn't. We have sleep through ingress. It's working fine. in or out of the mesh. In the mesh, we're letting not sleep through. And this is again because not sleep is being sent to the waypoint. And then it's being forwarded by the waypoint, which doesn't yet have a policy. And then it is being forwarded with the waypoint's identity. And so ztunnel allows it through. And we're still in that same state outside of the mesh. They don't respect waypoints, and they're just going to be denied. So that's not really what we wanted either. Let's look at how we handle this. So we're going to go ahead and put a policy onto our waypoint. And this is done by using the target ref. This is a much more Gateway API gamma style attachment. It's fairly consistent with upstream, and depending on the type of Istio API you're using, you will use a target ref or a parent ref. We have some documentation about which to do, but they both interact in a similar kind of way, and they are telling Istio that you want this to be enforced by a waypoint. And so we're going to allow sleep through, and we're going to again add that you need to use the get method. But the takeaway from this is as soon as we introduced that waypoint into our traffic stream, we need to be cognizant that the ztunnel enforcement is going to shift because the identity that traffic arriving at our destination ztunnel has shifted. And so the ideal place to enforce any sort of source identity becomes our waypoint proxy. Is that clear? Any sort of questions around why that happened or what to do?
So the guidance here is that instead of having yet another authorization policy, L4 authorization policy, once you have a waypoint proxy, you would enforce everything there and configure everything there. Is that correct?
So
at least for that service, right? Or for that principle.
So yes and no. There is no like hard-coded law inside of the ztunnel that as soon as the waypoint exists, traffic must come through it. So you can still use that L4 policy bound to your ztunnel to control that kind of thing. You could say anything that tries to bypass the waypoint, it won't have the waypoint's identity, so I'm not going to allow it. I only allow from waypoint. But it gives you that level of control to also say, okay, well, I'm in migration mode. I actually do want to be permissive about this. We'd like it if everyone used the waypoint because they were in the mesh, but we're not there yet. And so you do not have to enforce that. You have the option to do it now with Istio's standard APIs. So great question. Thank you.
Is there a related question? Is there, I wonder, like, is there an easier way to, or is there something in the works of a tool or something like that that I would be able to like do like a dry run type of thing, where I could say IstioCTL auth, can I connect from this to this using these parameters without actually applying things?
We do not have that, but that would be an interesting idea. So you would essentially give it an auth policy and expect it to check the existing state of the cluster and then simulate a client.
Yeah. Basically, whatever you're doing here with the run clients, but without actually applying any policies to the cluster, without like interfering with anything.
So is it like the Istio dry run, Authz dry run command right now for sidecar, kind of like that?
I think so. Yeah, I'm not 100% sure how that one works, but something that would allow me to basically test the, hey, this combination of my policies, if I have this combination of policies deployed, can A talk to B using Git on this path or whatever it is, right?
Yeah, I think that's the idea of the dry run for Authz. It's right now it's a Istio command. I think I'm looking at the docs right now. So it allows you to do a dry run and then run your test, connectivity test.
Okay.
Lynn, do you know if that's been updated for ambient?
I don't think so. I mean, Jeremy, you may
Yeah.
know, but I don't recall anybody mention anything about it.
Yeah, I don't, I mean, if you're depending on me, I don't think it's been updated, so.
Okay.
Yeah.
I
Okay.
haven't looked at it.
All right. Yeah, great idea. Peter, thank you. And you did sort of mention, we didn't go over what the run client is doing. It's fairly simple. It execs into the different pods and it tries to curl the relevant endpoints. So here we go. Nothing too wild. No smoke and or mirrors. Cool. So we have gone ahead and applied our layer 7 policy, and I guess we can look at this. To Peter's point in question, we now have the two policies enforced. We have a regular one being enforced by ztunnel, and we have the waypoint. So let's go ahead and run our clients. And these are all doing gets. And so this is behaving as we would expect now. Ingress, still allowed to talk, perfectly fine. We have our product page service from sleep. It's allowed to talk perfectly fine. We have our ambient not sleep. It's getting an RBAC access denied. This is standard when Envoy denies it. Ingress again for not sleep, still working. So your non-ambient workloads or VMs or whatever, they're still able to access just fine. And then we can see here that if you're outside the mesh, you don't respect the waypoint, and ztunnel is dropping that connection still for us. And then I guess the one last thing to check out would be is our verb enforcement correct? So this is just one of the other, it's one of our curls. We're going from sleep, so we're going to pass through that, but we're going to try and do something forbidden, which is a delete. And you can see our waypoint proxy is denying that because we have tried to do something which is forbidden. So that's the basic run through of how policy works, where it's enforced. I mean, just a quick recap. Basically, if you're using a selector in your policy, you're telling Istio that you want that policy to be enforced by ztunnel, which is a layer 4 proxy and introduces limits on what portions of Istio's rich API you are allowed to use. And then if you're using a parent ref or a target ref, you are telling Istio that this policy should be enforced at waypoint, and that unlocks your full gamut of policy enforcement options from the Istio API. Any other questions?
Yeah, Ian, there actually a question coming from Raymond from the chat. So Lynn already replied some, but if you can add more. Like the question is, does a waypoint become a single point of failure if you enforce a policy to only go through waypoint? So Lin said you can have multiple replicas of waypoints. Yeah, in case if you want to add more here.
Yeah, no, Lynn's spot on. Yeah,